Of attacks and intimidation of journalists is gaining notoriety in our republic. Data available to the Ministry of Information suggests that the trend is ascending. Increasingly, various actors in our society, state actors, non-state actors, political party operatives, assigns of businesses, and everyday citizens are resorting to attacks and intimidation of journalists as a means of expressing their displeasure. In the matter of investigation, the office was instrumental in investigating the attack on a CTFM journalist, Mr. Caleb Kuda. The report by the office determined that the handling of Mr. Kuda was excessive and unprofessional. Subsequently, the National Security Ministry dissolved the SWAT teams that operated under it and returned officers to their mother agencies. Other incidents of reported attacks on journalists have also been investigated by the office, with findings conveyed to security and prosecutorial agencies for action. Mr. Speaker, under the function of accountability, the mechanism has not been very successful, I regret to say. The need to hold the investigative, prosecutorial, and judicial agencies accountable for the incidents reported to them cannot be overemphasized. Holding the judiciary and prosecution accountable on a sustained basis must be the norm.
And the Minister for Information got the support of other members from both divides of the House that there needed to be something serious to be done. And they said we should hold the police and the judiciary, to some account. I don't know how exactly that may contribute, but let's see what you think. This time beginning with Tony Forsing. And a friend sends me a message. He says, my 10-year-old son was campaigning to be leader of his school's activities club. His school's activity club. Other students distributed toffees and candy. He lost. They won. So, to journalists.
These attacks are just unfortunate.
So the minister started what he set up and called the coordinated mechanism for the safety of journalists. He started it after the murder of Ahmed Swale, and between February and May 2018, 2019, about 17 journalists have been attacked. Not verbally, physically attacked. Some had been maimed.
Well, I think that these are some of the remnants of our political past, that anybody who attempts to speak against the system is seen as an enemy. And this didn't start today. It started way back from the military era. And people are still in the system who still believe that, notwithstanding the provisions in the Constitution, a person in authority cannot be spoken against. All the dictates are there. I always go back to Clara's definition that the legal framework is there, but the systems, that's where the problem is. So a person trains to be a journalist, he's taught all the nuances of journalism, but the moment he starts actualizing his craft, you get people telling him, look, don't speak against this thing. This one, nobody speaks against it. Then you see, it erodes from the training that he has. So I'll go to what Mame said. He said the people should want it. The question is, do the people want it? And who are the people? We are the people. The pastors. If somebody commits an offense, a criminal offense, you get pastors speaking to police officers.
Right.
Now, a police officer who is spoken to by his pastor, by the nature of the relationship, it breaks his resolve to enforce the law. So that is where the problem is totally systemic. So you see, the framework is there, but the system is not operating well. So we are to blame. It's so basic, we shouldn't pretend it does not exist.
Clara.
And before Clara comes, in psychology, we have something called self-preservation. Everybody wants to preserve himself. So if a person looks at the system and sees that the system is such that if you speak up, you'll be victimized, what happens? The person preserves himself.
Right, and he's done less than 2 minutes. And the sad thing about it is that the Media Foundation for West Africa has been chronicling these abuses, attacks, and almost always those who top the list are security agencies. They are the ones who are most in perpetrating the abuse.
Okay. Thank you, Samson. Permit me to use 30 seconds to comment on the previous issue.
Okay.
The issue about what do delegates think they are doing. Delegates know exactly what they are doing. Delegates are choosing someone that they are going to give access to a cake, to go and eat a cake. So they are just asking for their share of the cake. And another term we use is winner takes all. What does the winner take? So it comes back to our belief system and value system when it comes to political office, and the fact that political leadership has a responsibility, including the media and all of us, to do the education right. Now, when it comes to the issue of the journalists, I get their point that, yes, we have to hold the police and then the judiciary accountable. My questions are, one, were prosecutions made? If prosecutions were made, were there sentences? If the sentences were too less, did the judges pass sentences that were outside of the law? Or they passed sentences that were within the law? And then we come back, when it wasn't satisfactory, what have media houses been doing? Because these journalists, a lot of them work for media houses. So what are media houses doing? What of the GJA? The organization that is supposed to come out to protect the interests of journalists, what is the GJA doing? And what is the NMC doing? Because under the Constitution, the NMC also has the responsibility to promote and ensure the freedom and the independence of the media. We are not the independence of the media largely, but what of the freedom? Because once there is violence against journalists, we cannot say that there is freedom for journalists to do the work that they are supposed to do. And it is the NMC's constitutional obligation to ensure that the freedom has been doing. The freedom is given to journalists to be able to go about their work freely. So it comes back to what Senior Forson was saying about self-preservation and what we really want. Is it rhetoric? We can talk and just make cases. Personally, I didn't expect the Minister for Information to be telling us what we should be doing, but I expected to be informed on what is being done and how far we have gone in doing the things that we have done to secure protection so that this doesn't happen. Unless we really go into steps and minimize the speeches and give more reports of what is happening. Yes, people, like Senior said, people see these political parties as giving them access to personal goodies. So when you speak out against their political party, they think you are a stumbling block to their personal interest.
Okay.
And then they see you as an enemy. So we have to come back to the institutions that have the responsibility and ask them to report on how they are carrying out that responsibility.
Thank you very much. Yes.
In the name of God, I beg you, kindly read Article 41 to the country at large.
Article 41.
Duties of a citizen.
Yes, it's one of my
hallelujah.
The articles that I love reading and sharing.
Yes.
And it's
this says, drummed, I believe, like we used to have the pledge.
Right.
This should have been said by every media institution.
Article 41 says, the exercise and enjoyment of rights and freedoms is inseparable from the performance of duties and obligations, and accordingly, it shall be the duty of every citizen to promote the prestige and good name of Ghana and respect the symbols of the nation, to uphold and defend the Constitution and the law, to foster national unity and live in harmony with others, to respect the rights, freedoms, and legitimate interests of others, and generally to refrain from doing acts detrimental to the welfare of other persons, to work conscientiously in his lawfully chosen occupation. The one that we often pick and forget the rest is F, to protect and preserve public property and expose and combat misuse and waste of public funds and property, to contribute to the well-being of the community where that citizen lives, to defend Ghana and render national service when necessary, to cooperate with lawful agencies in the maintenance of law and order, to declare his income honestly to the appropriate and lawful agencies, and to satisfy all tax obligations, and finally, to protect and safeguard their environments. Galamsey should not be here.
Everybody should look in the mirror and ask himself these questions. That, am I doing what the Constitution, which I believe is the fundamental law of the land, says I should do? And everybody should score himself. And we will know where we are as a country.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. Oliver, 2 minutes. The matter of protection of journalists because of the growing abuse, assault.
First of all, I think for me it is important that the Minister for Information spoke in the manner in which he spoke. I think it's the right signals that we need to be sending, even at the highest level, that there's a journalist in government, and that he must always remember the duty that he owes to that community as well in the position that he stays in. I remember his comments as well when the City FM incident happened, that he was categorical that security institutions should not conduct themselves in this manner vis-a-vis anybody or journalists for that matter. But for 2 years, myself and folks within the country pursued this matter. For 2 years, we continued on right to information requests, and eventually this year, the Right to Information Commission fined the National Security Minister and ordered that the information be released. Till this day, in respect of that Caleb Kuda matter, it hasn't been done, no fine has been paid. This is what Article 41, as the duties of a citizen, is pitted against every day when citizens see. Because citizens see that when they take those initiatives, it doesn't bound anywhere. And like John Foster was saying earlier, self-preservation, in the face of self-preservation, people will choose self-preservation. And protecting public property, when the country mobilized individuals, homeless people, about settlement, which we've talked about for years, almost 8 years now. The police went there, shot at mothers and children, and they ran helter-skelter. That's what citizens were doing in accordance with their duty to protect private property. So I think that there shouldn't be a disconnect when we're calling on persons to. I don't think that anybody is going to choose the duty to act upon these duties when they receive no protection, when they have to do these things. But the question of journalists, I think the right tone is being struck. And institutionally as well, particularly for the Ministry of Information, if this is a voice that he wants to champion, holding persons within cabinet responsible for this conduct, it's important to show leadership for people to believe that they can act and that this would amount somewhere.
He's concerned that prosecutions are mounted and we hardly hear anything about them. And even when they end, the fines or the sanctions are so not deterrent. And I've done a good number of the cases against journalists. And some of the times the prosecution, it fails or it is botched. And then we do a civil one and then we win the civil case. But the amount of damages that is giving is nothing.
Yeah. I mean, I think particularly on the civil front and in terms of the damages as well, it's a general problem. And I'm wondering about the conservatism of our courts regarding this issue. I know that recently the Supreme Court has talked about of this very issue, that they have to evolve, particularly in terms of civil liability, to show that we are valuing people. Somebody would die and the court says that, no, why did you give the person 200,000 cedis, less than $20,000 for the life? And the court will slash that down, saying that it is too much. And I'm worrying to myself, is a life less than $20,000 in this republic? On the question of the prosecution side, we have to agree that a lot of the delay, a lot of the frustration, and a lot of them not moving forward comes from the state, which is again the executive, rather than the judiciary in these issues a lot of the times for criminal prosecution. And I have seen so many instances where the prosecution is refusing to do its job in these matters. The very few instances where the vast majority of times when criminal cases are delayed, they are delayed at the instance of the state rather than the courts themselves.
Okay.
So that's also something that it has to come from the executive.
Thank you. Yes, Dr. Mame Mensah-Bonsu, what do you say? Please unmute your mic.
My apologies.
Good.
I disagree with Oliver that the minister's speech served any useful purpose. To me, It looked like the government joining the demonstration against the government. What's with the passive voice? We must hold, these people must be held accountable. X and Y must happen. Who must make it happen? You're the government. Prosecutions are botched. By who? The Attorney General's office. This is a minister of the government saying the government is doing a bad job of protecting journalists, and it is bad that people must be unhappy. This is what I expect the demonstrators to say. Like Clara, I was expecting the minister to tell me what they have done. The SWAT team that was disbanded, the officers were returned to their home units. Returned to their home units.
Yeah.
That's the solution? The people have committed a crime against the citizenry and are making it difficult for the citizenry to stand up and obey Article 41. And the state's response is send them back to their home units so they can do it. Now we are dispersing them. So there's one agent in every institution to increase the impact on the ground, or what? I don't understand. So for me, the minister's speech was completely useless. I don't like people sympathizing with me about a problem that they have created for me. So if the government is serious about its position on journalists, it is our instrument, the people's instrument for acting on it is the executive. It should go ahead and do its job.
There have been complaints that our press freedom index has continued to go down. We are doing really badly, and the government needed to do something about it. And so if a coordinated mechanism is set up at the Information Ministry, through the Information Ministry at the NMC, and the minister is taking the front row to sort of coalesce all of us to help, is that bad?
The minister should, the speech he made, he should have made it in cabinet. And then after he's made the speech, the cabinet minister should have responded to away and sat down and come up with an action plan for this coordinated mechanism that includes all of the ministers whose portfolio these institutions fall under. And they should have come up with a plan from within government. When he speaks to the people, it's not a Chogwe moment. When he speaks to the people, he's coming to tell us how he's doing his job, how the government is doing its job. Who's the subject in the passive voice statements that government officials make when they say things like the people should, the people who are responsible for it should be held accountable? By who? Who is running the police forces? Who's running the security forces? Who are these people we must go to hold the forces accountable? So I didn't find it useful. It's nice. It sounds nice, but it's just, the person slapping me telling me how bad it is that I'm getting slapped.
Thank you. Mame Abena S. Mensah-Bonsu is a constitutional theorist and associate professor at Ashesi University. Clara Dueri-Kaseti is chairperson of the CRCC, that's the Constitution Review Consultative Committee. Sorry. Oliver, she's also a teacher. She lectures at the University of Ghana Law School. Oliver Bakavomawo is a researcher. He's a lawyer. He was a researcher with the CRC, Constitution Review Commission, and is a reform advocate. Anthony Forsing Jr. is former president of the Ghana Bar Association. He's a member of the CRCC. Joining us shortly will be John Ewoza, who is member of the CRCC. He is an auditor. We'll be right back to answer the question, the way forward in propping up a failing democracy is a fresh review of the Constitution. Is it? We'll be right back.